you guys? It's me, Arden Lee. I'm just gonna wait for a couple people to start popping on. Gonna go ahead and hello, Amy. Welcome. I'm gonna refresh my browser and I'm gonna share this video out to my group. If you're not a member yet of my group, the Repatterning Parlor, by the way, I'd love to invite you to join. All right, let's see, share it to a group. And there we go. All right, that should do it. So welcome, hi. Hi, Amy. Oh, yay, thank you. Quarantine has actually been pretty good to me. The lower stimulation has allowed me the space that I've needed to expand into a greater sense of somatic safety in my body, which is great. It's so good. Hi, all right, we've got folks signing on. All right, so say hi if you're here. And since we've got folks, yeah, totally. All right, so I'll go ahead and get started with today's topic. Since folks are watching already, I'm so grateful that you guys have caught the broadcast and are joining in. I've decided that in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be going live intermittently to do this fun little series I've decided to title Magic is Real. Hi, Darren. Yay, welcome. And what I want to do is from the UK. Oh, amazing. All the way in the UK. So it is 9 p.m. over there where you are. You're having a lovely, relaxing evening, I hope. So what I want to do is I'm going to do this little series called Magic is Real, and I'm kind of going to go live like sort of whenever I feel like it, since we're in quarantine and time is not linear. Right? So do feel free to set your notifications. Hi, Mordred. Yay, welcome. Do feel free to set your notifications to be notified for when I go live, so you can catch these. Of course, the replays will also stay up, not only on my own personal profile. Oh, hi, Clotilde. Wow, from Belgium. Clotilda. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So you can always catch the replay too, but I will be going live over the next 2 weeks to talk a little bit about my experiences with magic. And full transparency, I am doing this because, in part because I like it and I like talking about it, but I am enrolling currently for the Fall 2020 Myths and Magic course. We start on October 18th. Hi, Lisa. Yay. You guys. Lisa's a super powerful magician as well. You guys, if you're not familiar with her, she's super awesome. So over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be continuing to enroll for the course. We start Sunday, October 18th, and we go for 4 weeks. And it's specifically a course in narrative magic and archetype. I believe, to my knowledge, I believe that I am the only first-generation student of Grant Morrison, who is my teacher, who is the chaos magician who coined the term hypersigil, which is essentially a work of narrative magic that is designed to manipulate reality in an ongoing narrative fashion to alter the fabric of quantum reality, not just with a singular intention, but rather as part of an ongoing story. I'm pretty sure, to my knowledge, I'm the first generation student of his who is currently teaching narrative magic. So I'm really excited to bring this to you all, and I'm definitely hoping that that some of you who feel called may reach out to me and look into the possibilities of joining. You do not need any prior magical experience, although also if you have prior magical experience, that is great to bring to the container as well. Essentially, since we are dealing with narrative magic, story, and archetype, basically all pantheons are welcome, right? Because every deity, no matter what spiritual path you follow, is part of its own is basically its own archetype, right? Or at least fits into the overall archetype that that deity represents, right? So like you might have Venus in Roman mythology and Aphrodite in Greek mythology. You might have Freya in Norse mythology. I believe Oshun. Would we say Oshun, or would you say Yemanja is the equivalent of the Venusian archetype in African magical spirituality? I'm not sure. That's not. I'd be interested to hear more about that. So basically what I'm saying is this is a way of working magic that you don't need any prior experience, but will also jive with your current ways of doing magic, because no matter what kind of magic we're working, the power of storytelling is universal to all mythologies. So all levels of experience and all spiritual paths are welcome. And as I said, we start on October 18th. So definitely reach out to me if this is something that you're feeling called to. So, all right, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and teach what I promised I would teach, which is I want to point out the possibility of a magical connection between Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dying wish that she not be replaced on the Supreme Court until a new president is installed, and the events that unfolded at the superspreader event that was the Supreme Court appointment nomination / celebration at the Rose Garden. So I want to talk a little bit about what I understand about spirituality and magic in particular, and spellcraft in particular. There are a lot of people out there who approach, oh, Lisa says, Oshun and Santeria, Erzuli and Voodoo. Oh, but it is not 100% syncretic. Yeah, cool. Oh, thank you. I remember hearing about Erzuli as well. And yeah, again, those are pantheons that I'm not as familiar with. But yeah, I'm grateful for that. Thank you. Yeah, and that was referring to the equivalent of the Venusian goddess in more Western European mythologies. So what I understand about magic, there are a lot of people out there who are skeptical of it because it doesn't tend to show up in ways that are outside, that break the laws of physical reality, right? Our natural world is still very much governed by the laws of physics. So people think like, oh, well, if you can't wave a wand and just lightning just bursts out of the sky, or, you know, hey, there was a reason for that lightning bursting out of the sky, there was a thunderstorm that was predicted anyway, it doesn't count, you know, then you're going to miss what magic is really about, because any result that you are intending needs to come through a pipeline that conforms to the laws of physics, right? We don't just, you know, what I say a lot is like magic isn't magic, right? Magic with a K isn't just magic with a C, right? It doesn't just show up, quote unquote, magically. However, what will happen, what tends to happen, what I've seen in my experience, my observation, is that certain events will be orchestrated or will come together in ways that seem like coincidence, but which line up to create the circumstances necessary for the intention that the magician has cast to be able to come through. And I gotta say, you guys, you know, I don't know anything, you know, obviously, I know what you know in terms of the political situation. You know, even Nancy Pelosi is complaining that she doesn't know any more than we know, right? So I have no authority to speak on this, except for the fact that I understand through some years of practice, I understand some of the mechanics behind magic and how it tends to work. So when I observe that the Supreme Court nomination, the event for that appointment, the celebration of that appointment, is the event where COVID-19 ends up spreading and transferring among many members of the party who are trying with all their might to push through this nomination against Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dying wish. I look at that and I think, that's interesting, right? And something I'll say also about the idea of a dying wish, right? Someone made a comment and was like, what are you saying, that Ruth Bader Ginsburg is like secretly a witch in disguise, and that she, you know, like how's that supposed to work? I'm sure a lot of witches out there would love to believe that Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a witch in disguise. And there is actually, while I have no idea about her own personal spirituality, there are a lot of Hebrew spirituality traditions of magic that also go along with Judaism, which I know that her religion is. And I would even say that people who, for example, I was raised Catholic, right? And there's a lot of religious traditions that are informed by practices of magic and spirituality, right? Even when you think of like, what was Jesus doing with the loaves and fishes, right? He was literally working magic, right? When he said, you know, like, hey, take this bread, this is my body, right? That's sympathetic magic, right? I mean, I'm not sure what he intended by saying that. We can only speculate. But there are a lot of traditions that were passed down whose magic or spirituality has been sort of taken out of the teachings of them, and we just do them automatically. But there are a lot of magical principles that are woven into our religions. So all of that is to say, like, who knows? I don't know what her relationship with spirituality was. However, I do know that when we set a strong intention, such as a dying wish, that's huge. To me, if someone is saying my dying wish is XYZ, that to me is a spell. And I'll tell you why. And this is something I'm also, I want to also credit Adrienne Marie Brown, who tweeted that a dying wish is a death spell, right? Because one of the necessary components of spellcraft is that there has to be an element that crosses from the physical world into the non-physical world in order to carry that intention across, right? Basically what happens is when we're performing magic, we have an intention, we have something that we want to manifest. And it's like doing, you know, the difference between doing a spell or a ritual, right? Casting an intention, versus just having a wish or having a want, right? Why is that not enough? Well, it's kind of like doing your spell and making sure that that intention crosses over in some way is sort of like applying for the job promotion, right? Or asking for the raise, right? You can want it, you can deserve it, you can be worthy of it. But if you never actually formally submit your request, your boss, right, could maybe pass you over and say, well, I didn't know you wanted that because you never asked for it, right? So, oh, hi Parvin, yay, Parvin made it. Oh, thank you. I've been loving your recent photos, Parvin. You've been looking gorgeous as well. So, performing that ritual, sending something over to the other side, and specifically making sure that we're intentional about the thing that we're casting is essentially the art of practicing magic, right? And then that's the easy part, actually, though. The tough part is when that magic shows up and it clears everything that's in the way. It's like, oh, you want that? Okay, we'll help you out, but we have to get rid of all of these obstacles first, you know, things that you were probably attached to. You're gonna have to let go of those. So that's actually, I think, where like the real work of doing magic comes in. This idea that we send something over the veil with our intention and it comes back is something that we see in a lot of different magical traditions. So I'll give you some examples, right? One is a lot of, as you know, a lot of us witches like to burn things, right? So we might take an intention and put it on a piece of paper. We might make that intention, we might fashion it into a sigil, and we might burn that sigil, right? There's workings I have done before with a puppet, right? Essentially a doll, like a paper mache doll. And I've done, like, for example, I used to study witchcraft at the Green Man in North Hollywood. I count the Green Man staff among my teachers very proudly. And one of the rituals that I did in that community when I was more actively involved in it was a ritual where we all gave pennies representing our wishes to this paper mache doll puppet, basically basically about like yay big, you know, a doll like made out of paper and dressed in some little baby clothes, right? And then we burned it. We burned our poppet in effigy. And the idea is that he dies, quote unquote, so that he can go over to the other side and take our intentions beyond the veil to the powers that be and officially submit those requests so that those powers, those forces can start orchestrating events through the laws of physical reality, right? Without any like big bang lightning out of the sky, acts of God, you know, Harry Potter looking stuff, right? I mean, at least not that don't come through the laws of physical reality anyway. We can certainly have big acts of God come out of the sky, as I'm sure we've seen, right? But everything is going to have a reason behind it. There's nothing that can happen in physical reality that doesn't have some sort of a cause. So essentially, we send that intention over, right? So I'll use that poppet example, right? We give a bunch of pennies representing our wishes, and then the poppet is burned in effigy, essentially, right? The poppet is burned as our messenger to go over to the other side. This is the same with candle magic. Candle magic is also one of my favorite uses of magic because it's so simple and straightforward, and I can add a lot of cool energy to it by like choosing the color of the candle, the oil I anoint the candle with, you know, if I carve the sigil in the candle and I put glitter in it, the glitter adds another color, etc., etc. So I like candle magic for that reason, but it's the same basic principle, right? This is why it's important also when you're doing candle magic, you want to burn that candle all the way down, right? You can stop it in between, you can snuff it with your fingers for fire safety if you need to, right? But you want to make sure that eventually that candle goes all the way, because you don't want to like have your message like stay in your outbox, right? Or like your messenger get like halfway through and then get like caught between worlds. That would be an incomplete spell, essentially. So that's a really important element of spellcraft, is this idea that we have our formal intention that we submit, right? I'm formally casting for this. This is the thing that I want. And then it crosses over to the other side. So here's what I have to say about this. Regardless of whether Ruth Bader Ginsburg identified as someone who was practicing intentional spirituality with the objective of creating changes in the physical world, right? Regardless of whether she was a magician or a witch, right? Regardless of that, she certainly had an intention that she linked to her death. She said, "My dying wish is that I will not be replaced on the Supreme Court until a new president is installed." And again, she does appear to have been a spiritual person who was practicing Judaism, right? So sometimes we can cast for things. I want to be careful how I say this. I'm going to tell another story a little later in this series that will get into this more explicitly, but sometimes we can cast for something without directly intending it. And I don't want that to scare anyone, right? Because I don't want people to be like, oh my gosh, am I just going around like, you know, like, what am I going to do by accident without knowing it? And normally, if we're acting in good faith, the universe tends to have our back. So I don't want to scare anyone away from the practice by saying like, oh yeah, sometimes things that you intend can come true even if you didn't consciously cast for it, right? I'll tell you guys a story at one point, but there was something that I did where I absolutely had a moment of crossing over. And the thing I was envisioning in that moment, the wish that I was having, right? The daydream that I was having came true. I'm going to talk about that in another forthcoming episode. That's why I want you guys to keep your notifications on, you know, and watch for these, because I'm going to be sharing some really super cool stories about how magic has shown up for me personally. But essentially, having that intention and saying it is my dying wish, and then quite literally crossing over, quite literally having one's spirit leave the body, is incredibly, incredibly powerful. As a magical practitioner, this is like, that's that's the biggest launch that you get, right? The biggest launch that you get is where your spirit actually does leave, right? And while I haven't experienced that yet in this lifetime, from a magical perspective, this is also why, for example, sex magic is effective, right? Sex magic, the mechanics behind sex magic, and people like to use it and say, oh, it sounds really sexy and whatever. It's actually just very mechanical, right? It's lovely to cast an intention while you're having sex with your partner, and if that makes it sexier for you, then great. But it's actually just the mechanics of how during the moment of climax, your spirit briefly leaves your body and is able to deliver your intention to the other side before it comes back, right? That's why in French they call orgasm le petit mort, right? The little death. There are states of no mind as well, right? My teacher, Grant Morrison, used to launch sigils by going bungee jumping, right? You go bungee jumping and it's like, you can't be in a state of thought at that moment. Your spirit has briefly left your physical reality, right? So that is something also that will count as that crossing over, right? So when we do sex magic, or when we do like bungee jumping magic, if that's what you want to call it, you know, that thing that we're wishing for, that we're intending, that can come true in that moment as well, right? So from my limited experience, not having experienced death in this lifetime, certainly experienced a number of things that may have felt like death, or may have brought me close to death, right? So, oh, Emily says, I'm not keen on dating, so I might try the bungee. Oh, the wonderful thing is, though, you can totally do it solo. In fact, that's how I do most of my sex magic, if I choose to launch a sigil that way, you know, is just by myself, because I can focus better on my intention that way too, right? That's the thing about doing with a partner, is that sometimes they're like, oh, we'll draw your sigil on your partner's forehead or on their boobs, you know, or on their stomach, or on their back, I guess, depending on what position you're in, so you can look at it. Sorry, that's probably TMI. But yeah, I actually think it's more effective solo, unless you're doing a working together and you're really like into it and that's like part of your thing, right? That would be great. Like if you're a romantic couple and you're like, yeah, let's manifest something together, then that actually is going to amplify your power. So that would be really cool. But there's nothing wrong with doing it solo. You can totally do it solo. Emily says, oh, then I have been, it turns out. Oh, wonderful. Excellent. Yeah, if you choose to create a sigil out of your intention and hold it in your mind's eye in that moment, that's going to be super powerful. It's going to add to your practice a lot. I'd love to hear how that turns out if you make that adjustment. So from my experience, from my observation, the idea that a dying wish equals a death spell really rings true for me, given my understanding of the mechanics behind magic. And RBG saying, this is my dying wish, and then having that intention basically travel with her across the veil would be super powerful. And I am not surprised in exactly the way that it showed up, because oftentimes I have seen there will be extra special circumstances surrounding events, and I'll share this with you in a forthcoming episode of this. There will be some sort of special circumstances surrounding this that will let you know that it was your intention that brought it through. There will be certain circumstances, synchronicities, and in this case, it's not just that it seems that the Supreme Court appointment is being delayed and that all these, you know, GOP lawmakers and officials are contracting the coronavirus, right? It's not just that that's happening. It's specifically happening because of the Supreme Court appointment event that they threw in the Rose Garden, not taking precautions, and that one apparently, according to the data that we know, becoming the super spreader event. So I see something like that and I'm like, as a magician, I recognize that as really making sense. Now, could it all be coincidence? Here's the thing with magic. It can always be all coincidence, because you could always point the circumstances that led to your intention manifesting. You can always point to other reasons that they happened, right? Because magic always has to come through the pipeline of physical reality. It's not going to just drop out of the sky and all of a sudden it looks like an act of God, right? or at the very least, I should say, the super spreader event at the Rose Garden, how that happened, that is what an act of God actually looks like, right? There's always going to be events and circumstances that we can point to. But what I will say is that over the course of my own practice as a magician, if what I'm noticing is that, you know, at least say 9 out of 10 spells that I'm casting are coming true, are manifesting and creating change in physical reality, then I have to point at that at some point and say, you know what, this is probably too weird to just all be coincidence. When I'm having all of these very specific circumstances happen and come up, then that's probably, that's probably like at some point, right? I was like a big skeptic when I started out, which I actually love working with people who are open-minded skeptics. Oh, hi, Micaiah. Yay. Welcome. I love working with open-minded skeptics because I'm like, no, I don't want you to just believe everything that I tell you. I want you to take it in good faith, and I want you to give it a shot, and I want you to try it, and then I want you to see how those results pan out for you. And it does take some patience because your first results, it's like building a muscle, right? Your first results might take a while to manifest. The first couple of spells I cast, the first spell I cast is like still on its way. I see all the progress and all the things moving, right? But it hasn't actually materialized yet because there was so much density to get that was in the way of getting there. I'm like, wow, at least like 80-90% of that density has been moved, so it's on the way, right? Another little like simpler spell that I cast, you know, but which was very specific, took about over a year to manifest, right? So we might start, this is not a practice that like, you know, yeah, you can get some pretty amazing beginner's luck, and the universe really does want to work with you and really does like when people start using these forces, right? And working in cooperation with the divine. They're like, oh, this one's paying attention. Okay, good, right? Let's give some positive reinforcement so that this one like keeps trying, right? We want you to work in connection with us, right? But I will say that in the beginning, there will typically be a slower payoff, right? Until you've been doing it a while, it's like the wheel gets greased, right? And it's like you recognize where it shows up. And you've also likely, if you've been doing magic and you start to really align that magic with your higher self and do that to clear a lot of that dense energy that is actually keeping you from being able to be a more active creator, then the faster it's going to go eventually, right? Your first acts of magic, ideally, should help you to get rid of all the bullshit that is in the way of your being a powerful creator. Whether you do that directly with a spell that directly intends it, or whether the magic you do simply brings up all the things that make you aware of those things so that you can clear them out of the way, right? But I will say that we do this more and more, and it will be more and more obvious how it shows up over time. So, all right. So I want to keep these like, I was only going to go for like 10 minutes. It's been about like 30. I want to keep these episodes relatively brief so that people can keep up with them and watch them. So I'm just going to close out by essentially saying that is the mechanics that I noticed, right? I was like, if I've ever seen spell work, it's looked exactly like that, right? A dying wish, something casting an intention being sent over to the other side, and then all of a sudden events orchestrating that are related to that event, but which have absolutely come through the pipeline of physical reality, that do not defy the laws of physics, but those events orchestrating and coming together in order to help that intention manifest. And that's what I saw observing that. So again, I don't know any more than you guys know, but that is what I observed that I thought was pretty interesting. So again, I am currently enrolling for my Myths and Magic course. It is a 4-week course that starts on the 18th of October. I'm super excited to get started with that. We have 4 Sunday webinars, and we have group calls on Thursday evenings. And let's see, is there anything else that I need to say about that? It is $700 for new members and $500 for returning members. The alumni who have done it before know that they can always come back at a discount. And if you need a payment plan, it's cool. If COVID has hit you hard, but you're really feeling called to this course, reach out to me and, you know, we'll see what we can work out, right? We're in a pandemic, times suck. If you've been having a hard time with money or whatever, like, like, and if you really feel called, but money is an issue, you know, reach out to me. We'll work out either like a payment plan, or you tell me what you're comfortable with, and we'll see if we can find something that works for both of us, right? Oh, Amy says it's a great course. I had a blast. Yay. Oh, I love having you in the container, Amy. It's always a pleasure. Cool. So yeah, so reach out to me if that sounds like something that you're into. Again, it's a narrative magic and archetype course, so it is appropriate for all levels of practice. You'll learn something whether you're an absolute beginner or whether you've been following your own spiritual tradition for a while, and it jives with all spiritual traditions because it honors as something that honors the full spectrum of archetypes available to us. It works with all pantheons and all deities, right? So, all right, thank you guys so much. I'm so glad you tuned in. I'm so excited. I got like, I was looking at the count. I was like, oh, there's like 25 people on here. That was super cool. So I'm really excited, you guys. And again, turn on your notifications because I'm going to be doing some more of these episodes in the next 2 weeks to talk a little bit more about magic and how it works. And also check out the course. There's more details in my profile picture. If you're interested, hang up and let me know. And hope you guys have a great Monday, right? All right, Monday. Mwah.